Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Paul Rowbottom at City and Guilds. I'm the Technical Advisor in Healthcare and Childcare. We're just waiting for a couple more people just to log in this afternoon, so we're just going to give it another 30 seconds, a minute. Just to remind folks who are already on, the webinar relates to our new Key Stage 5 full-time technical offer in healthcare and childcare and doesn't relate to anything to do with apprenticeships. So I'm just checking in to make sure everybody's booked onto the right webinar. So this webinar is for any centre looking to offer our full-time technical qualifications in healthcare and childcare, and this doesn't have anything to do with apprenticeships. Okay, we're ready to start. The aim of the webinar is to update people on the new full-time Key Stage 5 level offer for full-time qualifications in healthcare and childcare. As I said, my name is Paul Rowbottom. I'll take you through, it takes about half an hour to get through the actual webinar presentation. You will have access to the webinar after today, and after the event, if you feel you'd like to know more about the qualifications, the delivery, the assessment strategy, etc., then please could you contact me directly. My contact details are at the end of the webinar presentation, and that would mean that I would then make an appointment to see you to come into your centre and talk more in depth in relation to the qualification offer and everything that relates to delivery. So, without further ado, I'm just going to introduce the webinar by virtue of a very quick presentation by my colleague Anita Crossland, who's the Senior Curriculum Manager for Full-Time Offer at City and Guilds. And this really sets the scene in terms of the changes in educational reforms and where City and Guilds is in relation to our technical offer for health care and childcare.
Following the Alison Wolfe report in 2011, the Department for Education acted on her initial findings and identified the need to overhaul vocational education. They started at Key Stage 4, 14 to 16-year-olds, and identified that the qualifications needed to stand up to the rigour and quality of the GCSE to ensure that vocational education came across in the same respect as the GCSE. These new qualifications are 120 guided learning hours in size, they have rigour and quality, and they also have breadth and depth of subject area, so it doesn't narrow that young person into their choices at post-16. These qualifications at Key Stage 4 also include synoptic assessment and external end assessment. At Key Stage 5, so post-16 qualifications, we have different categories. At Level 2, we will have qualifications that are going to be called technical certificates. These qualifications will be at 150 guided learning hours as a minimum, although at City and Guilds we expect our qualifications to be much bigger than that. These qualifications need to actually equip a learner to move forward, progress into further education, onto an apprenticeship, or onto a Level 3 tech level, or even into employment. These qualifications have to have rigour and quality, but the assessment will be quite key. So the qualifications need to have that full breadth and depth that actually lead to a specific job role. At Key Stage 5 Level 3, we're going to have technical level qualifications. These qualifications are around 300 guided learning hours, although we suspect at City and Guilds we will have much larger qualifications. These qualifications will have the same status as an A-level and actually will allow that learner to move into the world of work, through an apprenticeship, onto a specific job role, or even into higher education. These tech level qualifications will have synoptic and end assessment. So at Key Stage 5, our technical certificates and our technical level qualifications have also got employer involvement. As part of the rules for the Department of Education, employers need to be involved in the design and the development of these qualifications. And here at City and Guilds, we're really embracing that chance. So for all of these new style qualifications, the Department of Education has set clear design features in regard to the size of the qualification, endorsements and support needed from employers, professional associations or universities. And the assessment needs to include synopticity and externality. But most importantly, there will only be one chance for a resit opportunity. This actually coincides with the principles of GCSEs and A-levels. To guide you through these new measures, we offer lots of different support from events, one-to-one advice, and to find out more, please speak to your business manager.
Okay, so I want to start off by introducing you to the new Level 2 Key Stage 5 certificate in Healthcare, Care and Childcare.
TechBack is a new programme of study from City and Guilds. Its unique blend of technical qualification, work experience and skills development.
Apologies for that. So the new Key Stage 5 Level 2 qualification, building on what my colleague Anita was saying, will be a 360 guided learning hour qualification. It's primarily targeting 16 to 18-year-olds in full-time education and can also be available to those 19 plus. It's run on the basis of the academic year, so starts would be September, leading to the end of the academic year, the end of June, beginning of July. The employers who supported the qualification in terms of its content and related design are listed on the screen now, and those of you listening who would like further information in terms of the qualification handbook, when you get the PowerPoint presentation, click on the link and that will take you straight through to the handbook, the standards, all the units, all the assessment strategy, etc., etc. So that will give you a lot more information and detail than we're actually going to go through this afternoon. So the new Level 2 qualification is a full one-year delivery. The additional requirement, and we will go through the units in a minute, will be that every learner, every student will have to undertake a minimum of 120 to 150 hours of work practice placement. The qualification, as I said, is recognised by employers, and the aim is to allow these learners, these students, to gain the knowledge and the skills and the practice to support them leaving the qualification, either to go directly into work, onto an apprenticeship programme, or progress into a Level 3 technical qualification. So in terms of the 9 mandatory units for this qualification, you'll see on the screen there they are. There are no optional units, they are all mandatory, and the employers working with City and Guilds who designed this qualification really wanted a 16-year-old to be exposed when they open their front door to the world of health, care and childcare. So the work practice requirement for the qualification would enable a learner, a student, to engage in any of those areas of work practice. So they could work in a health environment, they could work in an early years environment, they could work in a care environment, or a combination of all three through the year. But alongside that, the teaching and learning support would cover the 9 units you'll see up on the screen. Most of those units are the same size in terms of GLH, but the first 2 on the left-hand side are somewhat larger. The work practice, as I said, every learner has to achieve a minimum of 120 to 150 hours work practice through the year, so that means by the end of June in the academic year. Most students would go out on work practice, if it's managed by the college, around October time after the DBS checks have been received. But the good news is that the work placement requirement can come from either paid work, so if a student gets work employment in healthcare or childcare, that can contribute to the total hour requirement, or if they get volunteering work in healthcare or childcare, that again can be included as part of the work placement requirement. But the colleges or the providers delivering this qualification will have to also manage some of the placement hours managed by the training provider. So in other words, if you set up placements with students, we would expect you to check those placements, DBS clearance on students obviously, and also monitor the students' attendance as those placements go through the year. Each student will receive a work placement workbook. Now these are available on the qualification webpage, and every placement the student did, managed by the college or the private training provider, they would have to complete this workbook. Now, this workbook links into their synoptic assessment, which we'll talk about later on, and it does require the learners to complete what we're calling work diaries, which very much directly link into the core values, professional values and practice of working either in healthcare and or early years. So the workbook comes hard copy or electronically, so the students can complete it online or they can download it and fill it in handwritten. But it is an important document because, as I said earlier, it does fit into that actual synoptic, graded synoptic, which we'll talk about in a minute. So in terms of the assessment of the level 2, there are two summative assessment methods. One is a knowledge test, summative knowledge test, which is externally set, externally marked, and that can come on online or paper-based. And in terms of the final grade for the students at the end of the year, that constitutes 40% of the overall grade. Now, the deliverers, people who deliver this qualification now, they get exam guides, which basically gives guidance to the student and to the lecturers, the teachers, the assessors, as to the units that the exam will focus in on, and some top tips for taking external tests. And the exam itself comes twice during the year. Once is in March, the first sitting of that exam is March, and then the second sitting for those learners, those students who want an improved grade or may not have done very well at all in the first sitting, would then be in June of the same academic year. So basically they will get two opportunities to take the test, but if they pass the test well in March, all right, get the grade for the test that they're looking for, then they would not need to resit in June. So the additional 60% of the assessment for the qualification comes by virtue of what we're calling a synoptic assessment, and that's externally set by City and Guilds, internally marked by the centre, and externally moderated by City and Guilds. And the screen shows you that there are 3 tasks as part of that synoptic. Now, the actual synoptic, the live synoptic, goes to centres in September of the academic year. So those of you listening looking to deliver this next September 18 would get that available to you in the September, but it doesn't actually be released, doesn't actually go to the students until February of the following academic year. So it will be 2019, February, when the students would actually see that. And that synoptic is managed by the centre, who would launch it to the students, meet all the requirements of assessment, have it marked, internally verified, and marked back to City and Guilds by a date in May. All right, so the teaching alongside that will obviously build to the launch in February and March, and then obviously the centres manage the timings, the requirements, the control conditions, if there are any, in terms of each student completing that synoptic. So the knowledge test, going back to point 1 there, is set. The time, date is set by City and Guilds, and all students will sit it at the time and date set, and those dates are released in the September of the academic year. And the synoptic, just to repeat, comes to centres in September for launch in the following February. And obviously, if you're delivering this qualification, you'll get the support from myself and colleagues in relation to further guidance around that. The students have to pass both component parts, so they have to pass the knowledge test and the synoptic. The grades are combined, the results of those 2 assessments are combined, which then leads to one final grade for the certificate, which could either be a distinction star, distinction, merit, or pass. So those centres delivering it now, this year, from September 17, just some timescales for them as it stands at the moment as examples. I won't go through all this with you now because those centres listening will obviously be looking to deliver this in September 18. All right, and obviously you get a similar calendar released to you, but it gives you some clear deadlines when you have to register learners on the qualification and when you register your learners for the exams and for the actual synoptics. And again, for key dates for next year, but for those who are delivering next year, that would say 2019. It just goes through the exam dates, results of exams, and deadlines for submitting marks to City and Guilds for the actual synoptic assignments. So naturally, those of you wanting to deliver this September 18, 19 will have a revisit of these dates, but the similar calendar would apply. And if I come out to see you after today, we'd go through this in much more detail. So from a centre's perspective after today, if you're looking to deliver this qualification next year, we would strongly recommend you download the qualification handbook, have a look at all the units, all the requirements, all the topics. The handbook is a very, very valuable document in terms of looking at the assessment strategy, which units this year the exam covers, guidance on the synoptic, and then that will familiarise yourself with the content in terms of the curriculum design and the curriculum delivery. So any feedback would be welcome, but the intention being is if you are offering this qualification, then I would come out and see you at your centre between a date mutually arranged in the new year, and then we go through this in much more depth. So for those of students looking to progress from GCSEs into our level 3 technical diplomas, we don't set any prerequisites other than to say that colleges delivering this already, and we've had this being delivered since September 16 across England. Generally speaking, the entry requirements set by those colleges for this qualification is 5 GCSEs grade C or above, including English and Maths, and those students wanting to go into nursing or midwifery, clearly science grade C or above is a requirement by most HEIs at GCSE level. So it's important that through their initial assessment, colleges and providers are very clear on the entry requirements for their learners to enable them to achieve and progress further thereafter. The technical qualifications at level 2 and level 3 have very much been built to allow these students or learners completing the qualifications to choose 3 destinations really. At level 2, it's obviously, as I said, going into work, onto an apprenticeship programme in healthcare or early years, or progress onto our level 3 technical offer. And for those students completing the Key Stage 5 level 3 diploma, then obviously those students again have destinations either directly into work, onto an apprenticeship programme, or progressing into higher education or further professional training. So the Key Stage 5 Level 3 offer, as I said, again, design principles very similar, except for this qualification, Year 1 is 540 guided learning hours, and for Year 2 is another 540 guided learning hours, total 1080. And each year of this level 3 qualification does have UCAS points attached to it, which I will explain to you in more depth in a moment. So, in terms of colleges and providers understanding the difference between City and Guilds technical offer and applied general qualifications, you'll see on the screen there what those differences are. All right, and there are clear differences. Basically, one of the major changes with the technicals is it's preparing your learners for employment, direct employment, into an apprenticeship programme, but also, again, it carries those UCAS points to allow many learners to progress into higher education, so universities, or further professional training as required through those universities. So what's available at level 3? Well, as I said earlier, there are 2 qualifications. One is the level 3 Advanced Technical Diploma in Health and Care, which is 540 guided learning hours, and that's a qualification in its own right. So learners want to do that qualification in 1 academic year. All right, once achieved and they've passed all the summative assessment requirements, can leave, okay, and progress into employment if they so choose, or go on to an apprenticeship program in health or care, or which is what's happened now. The majority of students do go into the 2nd year, progress on to Year 2, which would mean on the successful completion of Year 2, they would achieve the Level 3 Advanced Technical Extended Diploma in Health and Care. And I'll talk more about those, the units within those qualifications now. So the links to the 2 qualification handbooks are available. You'll see on the screen when you get this, click on the link. There are 2 handbooks. The 540 qualification, even though it's a freestanding qualification in its own right, is nested in the Level 3 Advanced Technical Extended Diploma in Health and Care. So you progress from 1 into the 1st year onto the 2nd year of the 2nd year of that qualification. So you see on the screen the employers at the top who supported City and Guilds in the design of the Key Stage 5 Level 3 qualification. All right, so as you'll see there, we've got NHS trusts from across England and adult social care providers too. And the universities listed at the bottom were the universities and the departments within those universities who had a look at the units, the content of those units, just to make sure that they were all current, which they were, and they tweaked them and gave us some good advice back in relation to content, so my thanks goes to those universities and colleagues within those who supported us in the design. Now, in terms of progression, many students completing year 2 of the qualification obviously are looking to progress into universities or into further professional training. And you'll see here on the first screen all the universities across England and Wales and Northern Ireland, actually, who will support the qual in terms of interviewing students for further training, subject, of course, to those students achieving the prerequisite grades that the universities require to progress into higher education. So, and also obviously depends on the grades that the students get having achieved the technical qualifications. But they will consider the technical qualification aligned to their qualifications. Again, further list there for you, and this list is updated weekly. All right, so it's well supported by universities across England is the message, subject of course to these students getting the grades that these universities set as entry requirements to their training. So it's really good news there. So in terms of current providers of the level 2 and level 3 technicals in England, you'll see up on the screen on the left hand side all the colleges currently delivering, all right, for level 3 and level 2. And obviously more colleges are looking to come on next September, September 18, which in part is why we've started the webinar series at Sitting Guilds now. And September next year sounds a long way off, but actually it isn't. And that's why we support you through this year and early next to prepare yourselves and get approval for the qualification to deliver next September. Now, for those of you listening who may offer the dental nursing apprenticeships, Sitting Guilds has also launched a level 2 technical certificate in working in dental settings. All right, so that's the same sort of technical certificate as I've outlined with the level 2 healthcare and childcare. It's a freestanding qual, and colleges, as you'll see, there are 2 colleges running that now, and the intention being is that for many of those students doing it, they will progress into the level 3 dental nursing apprenticeship new standard. Okay, and that's hoping for progression. Those students will do that. So this dental certificate at level 2 is a prerequisite entering into that apprenticeship program. So for the level 3 advanced technical diploma in health and care year 1, so this is a 543 academic term delivery. You'll see there the 9 mandatory units that every student will have to complete. Obviously, when you download the qualification handbook, you'll see in much more detail the content of those units. There are no optional units, and having achieved those, there is a requirement through the year that each student will do a placement, minimum 200 to 370 hours practice, work placement practice, which is managed by the training provider. We've given you the range there, but it has to be done by the end of June. All right, so minimum is 200 hours practice, and we'll explore more on what that looks like in a minute. So in year 2, those students successfully completing year 1, you can't proceed to year 2 unless you have achieved all requirements of year 1. You see on the left-hand side that every student will do another 7 mandatory units, and they're listed on the left-hand side. And then the students have the choice, depending on where they want to exit the qualification. Otherwise, do they want to go into nurse training or midwifery, or would they rather pursue a higher education degree, undergraduate degree program in psychology or sociology, for example? They would choose a respective pathway. So there are 2 pathways in year 2. One is a health pathway and one is a care pathway. So students would need to decide which pathway they followed, and the units within those pathways are up on the screen. They can't swap the units around in the pathways. So for example, if you're doing health, you would have to do 317 and 318, and if you're doing care, you have to do 319 and 320. And in year 2, again, there's a further 200 hours of work practice required as part of that 2nd year of study. So in terms of that work experience, as I said, each year carries a minimum 200 hours. Again, like the level 2 certificate, students can achieve the hours based on paid health or care employment, voluntary work in health or care, and college managed training placements, work experience managed by the college. The emphasis being here is that the placements have to be in health or social care. They cannot be in settings for early years or any classroom-based educational settings. So it's important for those offering the qualification next year to ensure that the student placements meet these requirements. And for those students looking to work for in early years or working in teaching assistant roles or working in educational settings, we would strongly advise them to look at the new City and Guilds Level 3 Childcare qualifications, Technical Childcare qualifications, or early year practitioner qualifications. And later today, for those of you who are listening, who have booked onto that, that starts later this afternoon at 2:30, and that will cover the Level 3 technical qualifications to support learners looking to work with early years. So on the right hand side, to support the Level 2 Health and Care Technical, you'll see in examples there of placements that colleges have currently placed their students, and there's a good range. That's not an exhaustive list by any means, but would give you a feel of the types of placements that students are currently doing this academic year, and for those of them running the qualification in 2016-17, where they place their students and to meet that work placement requirement. So again, like the Level 2, each student has work placement workbooks that they have to complete. And again, this links into the summative assessment requirements. So they get one for Year 1 and one for Year 2. And depending on how many placements they do in each year, they would have to complete one workbook. So if they did 2 placements in Year 1, there would be 2 workbooks. If they did another 2 placements in Year 2, there'd be two workbooks. And the workbooks very much home in and direct the students to start developing the skills of reflection, reflective practice, and they take that into their summative assessment professional discussion, which we'll talk about now. Again, those are electronic resources, or they can be downloaded hard copy, and the students complete them that way. So in terms of UCAS points, you'll see up on the screen, many students will be now applying for UCAS, through UCAS to go on to universities to do undergraduate studies or further professional training. And you'll see on the left-hand side the distinction star, distinction merit and pass grades that the Level 3 qualification attracts. And for those students going from Year 1 into Year 2, the grades they achieve in Year 1 are combined with the grades that they get in Year 2 to give a final grade, one single grade, for the completion of a 1082-year program. And for those students up on the screen, as you see, if they get a distinction star, that attracts 168 UCAS points, distinction 144, etc. And students would need to be very clear on what those university entry requirements are to do a degree program or further professional training, for example, in nursing or midwifery. So how do we assess the Level 3? Okay, well, for Year 1 and Year 2, there is a knowledge test, very similar to the Level 2 certificate. So for the Year 1, you see there a knowledge test, 40% weighting. It's a paper set by City and Guilds, externally set, externally marked, and you again, centres can have that online or paper-based. And that carries 40% weighting combined with a 60% weighting on the synoptic assessment, which again is released to centres in the September of the academic year. The current synoptic, as you'll see, carries 3 requirements. One is a case study, well, three case studies, which the students would have to achieve under controlled conditions, plus on top of that, a minimum 30-minute, maximum 45-minute recorded professional discussion, which is undertaken with each student, and that would be supported by an assessor or a tutor or an employer. And the requirement would be that the centres mark the synoptic, they internally verify it, and at the end of May, sorry, middle of May, would submit the synoptic results to City and Guilds, who would then externally moderate this synoptic assignment. And the synoptic is marked as one piece of work. So the case studies and the professional discussion are marked as one, and the student is issued by the college or the provider 1 grade for the synoptic, combined with the knowledge test, would give them an overall grade for Year 1. Those students progressing to Year 2, again, there is a knowledge test at the end of Year 2, sorry, in midway through Year 2, combined with a synoptic assignment, same as Year 1, except the case studies are slightly different in Year 2, but they do have a professional discussion as well in Year 2 as well. So again, knowledge test externally set, externally marked by City and Guilds, online or paper-based. Synoptic is launched to centres in September and issued to the students in February of the academic year, managed by the centre, marked by the centre, and externally moderated by City and Guilds. And again, for those students completing the 2-year programme, the grades for year 1 are passed into year 2, and a combined grade comes out overall, combining the 2 grades for the 2-year programme. And City and Guilds has launched exam specs, exam guides available for centres, which very much supports preparing the student for their exams, which again, for the level 3, just like the level 2, the first chance to sit the test is March of the academic year, with a resit for those students who want to resit in the June of the academic year. So again, these are the dates, key dates for those centres who started to deliver this qualification this year. So we've got many colleges starting in September 17, and obviously they're building their students up to the first test, which will be in March. And obviously they've all been released. The synoptics, the live synoptics have gone to centres, but they can't release those to students until February next year. But you know, teaching and learning is ongoing to build their students, hopefully to enable them to achieve really good grades in the first exam sit in March, and then obviously supported through their synoptics from February onwards next year. And this just shows the dates, key dates for centres who are delivering in terms of exam series, booking series for exams, and final results would come out in the August of the end of the academic year. So for those colleges delivering level 2 or level 3 this year, then grades will come out in August 2018. So a similar calendar would be launched for those centres looking to deliver this qualification in September 18 for 19. So for the level 2 certificate that I've talked about earlier today, and for the level 3 diploma talked about earlier just now, the assessment objectives are on the screen. So that basically means that each of your students, your learners, for the synoptic would be graded on 5 assessment objectives, and you'll see them up on the screen there. And the qualification handbook covers this in much more depth, but each assessment objective is graded on 3 banding scales, and the synoptic is marked as 1, even though it has various tasks within it, and you would be giving your students 1 grade covering the 5 assessment objectives up on the screen. But more detail of that would come if you follow this up with me coming out to see you as a centre. So we break that down in much more detail to actually have a look at the grades the students can achieve for each of those assessment objectives. So on top of the support that the technical advisors and City and Guilds will give you, we have a technical moderation support team based in our Wakefield office, and they are on hand throughout the delivery every day to support the centres who are delivering now or want further guidance now for delivering next September. And they support with the queries, customer queries on the approval process, timelines for exams and the synoptic assessments, and anything to do with our moderation platform, which is the platform where centres would upload student marked work and also examples of student marked work, which is what the externally appointed moderators will look at to just confirm the marking that's taken place by each centre. And again, for further information, there's a link at the bottom there on the website which covers what the moderation support team do. But again, this will all further be explained to you in the event you want to proceed with this next September. So again, a few more details here to have a look at when you get the slides. And for those students perhaps at level 3 where you do want to stretch and you want to offer more challenge, then from January in the academic year through to June, the City and Guilds Level 3 Extended Project Qualification is available alongside to the technical. And again, that qualification is available at UCAST as well, and is seen as a qualification in its own right. The qualification, as you've probably picked up, doesn't carry any unit assignments. All right, so there is no every unit the student does, you'd have to do a summative assessment with that. It's very much allowing learners, teachers, and lecturers and assessors to be freed up to engage in the teaching and learning, leading to that exam, first test in March, and then obviously helping them through the synoptic assessment. So in terms of approval, if you're looking to have approval for either the certificate or the diploma, we would expect centres to submit qualification approval form on our portal, on our quality portal. and this would then trigger a visit by an external quality assurer who would come and visit the team, delivering or wanting to deliver the team, look at the resources, look at the CVs, the teaching, the people that are occupationally knowledgeable to deliver the qualification, and once centres have approval, then obviously they're good to go next September. But before that occurs, normally I would come out to centres and take them through this in much more detail, go through the qualification handbooks in much more detail, assessment requirements in much more detail, just to make sure everybody's prepared before they submit their qualification approval and they receive that external quality assurance visit. Because obviously we want you to get the green light when they come out and give you approval. But again, further support around that is available by the technical moderation support team. Funding, self-explanatory up on the screen there in terms of funding for the qualifications. We do have centres delivering the Level 2 certificate currently to 19+ learners, and these learners are all in employment in health or care settings. One of the colleges delivering this provides afternoon and evening study. All right, so doesn't have to be there for a sort of daytime delivery. They are offering it to the mature learner 19+, and the qualification would be supported by a 19+ advanced learner loan. So again, in terms of resources, lots of resources available to support teaching, learning, and for tutors and for the students. And for the Level 3 qualification, we do have SmartScreen available. And for those of you not familiar with SmartScreen, it's our online portal, our learning library, as I call it, available, which carries resources for each unit of the Level 3 qualification. And the resources include schemes of work, lesson plans, PowerPoint presentations, work activity sheets for the students to complete, and handouts for the students. So it's all aligned to the units, enabling those delivering the qualification to have as much support in terms of resources as we can. Obviously, centres can add to that if they so choose. The advisory visits, well, you're talking to one of the advisors now. After today, we would come out and do a centre visit with the team looking to deliver this next year. Normally that delivery, that support is a day. We give a day delivery on that, so everybody's up to speed with all the requirements, the content, the delivery strategies, the assessment focus, etc., etc. And on top of that, we have centre support guides, which you can see on the right-hand side, bottom right-hand side of the screen, and the links on the following page takes you through to those very useful guides around employer involvement, employer support, and as examples there, how to teach, learn, and assess the technical qualifications. So the support materials around this offer are really very, very good. And then you have access to people like me who can advise you daily. And when you're on programme and you're delivering, that support continues, and we would expect to come out and see you to monitor how things are being delivered and to make sure that everything is running smoothly for the students, but also for yourselves as the deliverers. But again, we go through this in much more detail when we come out. So in terms of the moderation support team, as I mentioned earlier, they're to hand as well, covering what they provide support with. The direct contact number is at the top of the screen, plus the email address. So anytime, once you're pre-delivery or post-delivery, you can contact them for support, and they're really good, particularly around the moderation portal, helping centres give guidance on how you upload evidence onto the portal between May time every academic year. So great asset for them. And finally, we have a centre support team available at Sitting Girls who can support you in terms of that qualification approval. The War Garden is our catalogue system which shows you the costings for the qualifications. It's also the portal where you would register your learners onto the qualification and also book them into the exams and book them onto the synoptic. And they are great help for that too. And they'll also support you in terms of our Evolve support, and that's our Evolve online examination testing system, our platform, which you would actually need to use if your students were doing the tests, the yearly tests online. But again, this is further explained to you in more depth when we come out and see you. So just as a final now, this is congratulations to students at Swindon College. These are the Health and Care Level 3 Key Stage 5 technical students who've completed Year 1. They're all in Year 2 now, and they're going through their UCAS applications, applying to universities for entry into next September. All right, but that was a certification presentation event that I did with the course tutor who's at the back with me, and that's some of the students who passed, and we had a presentation of their certificates for the 540 Year 1 qualification. So credit to all of them who went through the qualification, now in Year 2, and my best wishes go to them to go on to universities in September 2018. So me on the right, as you'll see there, if you'd like further support and to arrange an in-house information event, then my contact details are at the bottom. All right, so please contact me, and either my colleague Susie Gray, who supports the northern part of the country, and I support the south, will come out and see you, and happy to advise further at any time. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to field some of those now. All right, I think you will receive this in the next 7 to 10 working days, and the point now is obviously if you need to arrange a centre visit for us to come out and see you in situ on a date mutually arranged, then by all means get in touch via email or give me a call, and we can put dates in the diaries for the new year to come out and visit you and your teams. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to take those now, but I think that's fairly self-explanatory at this stage. Lots of links to take you through to additional documents that will help you and unpack some of the things we've covered today, but hopefully look forward to hearing from you in the not too distant future. So at this stage I can't see any questions. Well, that means that's good. So hopefully I've explained as much as I can today, and that's given you an outline of the new qualifications. So if you can deliver, you know, fingers crossed we'll get in touch over the next few weeks and put a date in the diary, as I said. But centres in the webinar today will be looking to deliver next September 18. So as I said earlier, it is an academic year delivery over 3 terms, and feedback so far from those colleges delivering the level 3 or level 2, it's going really very well. They're enjoying the course, enjoying all the new assessment methods, and feedback from students is too, they really like it. So yeah, if you'd like to deliver that with us, then happy to support you further. So that concludes the webinar today, and look forward to hearing from you in the future. And those of you wanting to know further details around the level 3 childcare technical qualifications at Key Stage 5, then my colleague Susie Gray is offering that today at 2:30 for those of you booked on, and we're also offering the same webinar, this webinar again, and the childcare webinar at Key Stage 5 level 3 next week too. So if you'd like to know more, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you and goodbye.